Welcome to Inside Out with Ella. I'm here with Kirsten from Taylor Blend. We've been working together since 2020 on DNA and supplementation, and we thought, well, let's sit down and have a real chat on why and what and how we are doing this. Yes.
Awesome. I can't believe it's almost been 5 years. So maybe just straight out the gates, what was the initial vision with Epigenetics?
It's such an interesting question. I'm in a field where everyone is into wellness and everything is, the next thing is wellness and health devices, where for me, it was never following the curve or the wave. It goes actually back to when I was 6 years old. I unfortunately lost a family member and I was a very curious child. So I asked my parents, but why? And it ended up them having to tell me she had MCAD, which is a genetic disorder, which means she couldn't break down middle chain fats to convert it into ATP. So unfortunately, then she passed away. So it's a very emotional story or an emotional connection, which basically left a big question or a big realization from the age of 6 that we are all different, how we break down food differs. And what is very interesting is another family member has the same condition, but he supplements with L-carnitine, which breaks down fat into energy. He has a normal life and he functions as optimally as possible. And from a young age, I was quite aware how our DNA differs, because at the age of 6, I kept asking questions until I got the most scientific answer a 6-year-old could handle, that your DNA changes when you take supplements and that DNA differs. So growing up, I went to study BSc genetics. I added psychology and physiology. So it's 3 different departments. Crazy time studying, running to exams because they plan it crisscrossed because it's not the same faculty. And I remember studying how they genetically manipulate food groups, just for interest's sake. Like even corn is actually not supposed to be yellow, or most things we eat are so genetically manipulated. Well, they choose the best genetic variant and then they use that. And I remember sitting there thinking, this is wonderful, but I'm too passionate about people and how to prevent. I don't want to go into food or virology or animal science. And back in the time when I was studying, that was where you would have gotten a job at, or you would have actually made money. I remember when I went to one of our lecturers saying, like, I want to test human DNA. And they said, that's wonderful, but who's going to pay for it? Because when I started off, it was like 20,000, where we're now down to a base start of 3,000 Rand for DNA test. And I said, no, they will pay for it. And they said, honey, you'll never make money. Like, you can't test humans' DNA. And I remember thinking, I'll get someone to pay. It's okay. Like, I want to help people. So it started off completely from a young realization, a passion for people. And then when I entered into the health industry, it was just the biggest shock. It was treating everyone the same. It was not looking at blood markers, not looking at DNA, not looking at symptoms. And I remember a big thing for me was when I did a test for another company for pharmacogenetic test, I had to go and test a female in an ICU because she went psychotic and she was on 18 different chronic medications. And if you just add all of that medication into one bowl, like, there's so many drug to drug interactions. And her husband asked, like, she was psychotic, so he lost his best friend. And I remember asking the nurse, why is she on so many medication? Why isn't anyone testing her DNA? Why isn't anyone testing her blood work? Why isn't anyone taking care of her? And I remember the nurse told me, because someone out there is just too scared. It was the weirdest thing. She told me that someone out there is too scared to take responsibility of someone else's life. And I remember thinking, I agree, and we should all take responsibility of our own lives. So I'm for doctors, I'm for nurses, I'm so for, but I think it's important to realize you should take responsibility for your own life, for your own prevention, for what chronic medication you're taking in, to take responsibility, to see if can you metabolize it, to take responsibility to see what food groups can you metabolize and what works with you. Lastly, I think I grew up, and I remember in high school I was all the time hungry, a bit cryish. I had very bad skin acne. I was a little depressed, and I thought, this is life. Welcome to life. And I remember doing a DNA test saying I actually need to metabolize. I metabolize protein best. I need magnesium and zinc, so that helped with hormonal issues, skin issues. I saw that I actually am quite I have a genetically high VO2 max. So I started doing trail running, endurance running, and that knowledge changed my life. It helped me recover from hormonal issues. It helped me recover from mood, mental health issues. It helped me recover from feeling hungry all the time. So I'm really hoping to give that to each and every person.
That is an incredible story, or a couple of stories. But just one thing I'm thinking about now is, what you said initially is people are scared to take, there's someone that's scared to take responsibility of their health or responsibility. And I think a lot of us are scared to take responsibility of our health because maybe we don't know what to do, or we're afraid of what sort of information might be there for us to see. So I think people would rather just sit back and see what happens, and people just end up following the latest trend and doing the latest diet or taking the latest supplement and thinking it's going to make them healthy, but it might not be what's right for them. So I'm super excited to just see you make a big impact here, and then also just everyone starting to take a little bit more control of their health, and it can be scary, but it can also be very powerful, like your story. So if you know you have really high inflammatory pathways, or your detox pathways don't work well, or you have a high risk of a certain disease, rather know that information and supplement with a certain nutrient, and you can prevent that. So it's quite powerful.
That's so interesting. Yes, exactly. I think the one thing I get very I would just want to sigh if someone says it, because I think you understand DNA completely wrong, is someone would say, but there's nothing I can do about it. And I think that's the biggest lie. With DNA, you get genetic variations, and you get genetic deletions and genetic insertions. So yes, you can't change your DNA. But I also understand, up until 2016 was the big break with epigenetics. Now, epigenetics means on top of your DNA. So epi in Latin means on top of. And what they've done is they took rats and they gave them different diets. One had a high fat diet and they couldn't metabolize fat. The other had a high protein diet, and their offspring literally had different diseases because of the diets. The offspring literally had different colored hair because of the diets. So everyone realized back only in 2016, it's not even 10 years back already, that you can alter the DNA on top of your DNA. So an easy way to explain, if you've got the genetic risk for, let's say, insulin resistance, if you follow a low GI diet and you maintain your insulin, you're not only preventing yourself from struggling with insulin, you're actually helping your offspring, your children, to future children, to not struggle with the same genetic risk.
Yeah, that's amazing. You can influence and change your genes. So what is your current passion? What are you extremely passionate about now?
I think it's a good question, because I give consultation sessions each day, and for every client I feel like I learn something new. I think the more you know, the less you know, and I love it. But one thing I've seen is the truth is in the tension. So health benefits. I mean, until recently, everyone was like, you need to cold plunge. And then when new research came out, it was like, okay, cold plunging can be difficult. It can actually cause harm people. We need to calm down. And what I've seen is, and I think we talk about it a lot, is there's like an Instagram, the moment it's on social media and someone says it's healthy, everyone is doing it. And I think I'm very passionate about explaining that people are different, and what is healthy to me isn't healthy necessarily to you, and that the truth is in the tension, and the tension is not overdoing it. And that it's so difficult for us as humans, but consistency beats intensity. But I would love to hear more from you. I know you research a lot on cold plunge and protein intake. What are you passionate about now?
Yeah, we've touched on a lot of things, and we always talk about these things offline. But I guess for me right now, I think my big interest is around women's health. And you've already just mentioned protein, so maybe I can just talk a little bit about that. And when it comes to women, we follow in the footsteps of men a lot of the time. And I think I listened to a podcast earlier, only about 6% of sports science or exercise studies are done on females. So all we know is the studies that are done on men, and so we kind of do what the science tells us. And women are built very differently and physiologically, biologically differently to men. From the way we are built, our body composition, to the way we process carbohydrates and fats, and all these, and our hormones as well. So everything is very different. So one thing I'm super passionate about is teaching women how to gain muscle mass, as it's been a kind of a taboo thing, and women are very scared of going to the gym and getting stronger, and it's kind of been a bit frowned upon, women are afraid to do it. So the recommended guidelines of protein intake are about 0.8 grams per kilogram of body weight, and that's just enough. That's just enough to survive, really. It's based on studies that are done to see how much protein we require just to exist and not to be optimal. So aiming for something closer to double that, so like 1.6 to 2 grams per kilogram of body weight of protein per day is more around what we should be aiming for. And a lot of women don't really achieve that. So I just like to, when I consult a lot of female athletes specifically, we see massive improvements in their health when we start increasing protein intake. So that's just one of the things that's super exciting. So yeah.
Lastly, just a bit of a health tip to end off this. It's a very random, but on the topic of protein, is that I know what's so interesting is there's a lot of studies being done correcting old studies, and mostly on studies that has only been done on men. They're now including women, and something like fasting, how you should fast based on your cycle. But then what is quite interesting is recent studies have shown that people who have this misconception where if you've got high cholesterol, you shouldn't be eating eggs because eggs has cholesterol in it. And it's so interesting I've been starting to so religiously eat 2 eggs in the morning, and just that bit of protein that I'm getting in, and it suits my DNA diet, how that affects my mental ability and my energy throughout the day. And I'm quite passionate about also starting on a protein. So if you take one thing from this podcast, please start your day with a healthy protein, fat, and a complex carb. I think me and Kirsten says this daily. So but it was so nice chatting with you and also touching on different topics. It's always fun having you here.
Very much. I hope we do it again, and there's lots more to explore.
Absolutely. Thank you.